Hello, and welcome back to your second web scraping tutorial. Today, we're going to go through looping through tables in a Python module called BeautifulSoup. Also, we're going to work on dynamically creating content in terms of a CSV file and sending it to a folder. So, basically, all we're going to do right now is, if you haven't done so, open up your browser, and to follow along, just go to Yahoo Finance and type in any ticker you want. I typed in 3M because it's a awesome ticker, 3Ms. It's the same protocol as last time. So what we're going to do first is initialize a variable and basically open up the URL with URL-lib. So what we're going to say is URL-lib2, that URL open, and then URL. And then we're going to say .read to convert it to a string. Okay, awesome. And then let's print the HTML just to make sure we're good. Okay, terrific. There it is. Let me also get rid of all these variables right here. Another cool feature about the Spider IDE is you can actually see your variables, which we'll look at in a sec. So what we want to do now is go into this page, and let's say we theoretically wanted the data here for this stock. How would we go about web scraping it through this table? Well, you could actually get pretty complicated with it and actually go into maybe JSON nested within the HTML. But all we're going to do here is use a little module called BeautifulSoup in Python. So the way we're going to do that is import bs4 as bs. So what BeautifulSoup is going to allow us to do is parse this HTML. And if you guys aren't familiar with parsing, basically think of it like this. So when I right click and view the page source and I see that this is not JavaScript, meaning that we can legitimately parse it with the BeautifulSoup or any other module that will be able to parse regular HTML, because that's what BeautifulSoup is. It's an HTML parser. So if we want to Command F, previous close. Okay, so realistically, what you see right here, just for future reference, is, I believe for this particular website, JSON. And JSON is a data format which we're going to go into later. That's more in the API side of things as well. But it's good to know. So let's go to previous again. Let's keep pressing down. I was at it before. Or we could also just type in the ticker. So 3M. Or we could search something like company name. Whoops. Okay. So basically, just to think of parsing, here's a good example. So let's say I wanted to extract between certain characters or words within this HTML like blob. That you can think of it like that. That's, we would parse it to get to there. So, I'm sure that's not a terrific explanation, but that's what I think of when I think of parsing. But anyways, what we want to do is next X out of this, and what BeautifulSoup allows us to do is right click. Well, this isn't BeautifulSoup, this is just our browser, but what BeautifulSoup is going to allow us to do is to extract these elements. So we can look at it in this regard. So everything is housed in this table, it seems like. So this is a div ID, or a div, and then it has an ID of quote summary, which we're going to be using. So we're going to copy that and just paste it right here for now. So what we want to say is, first off, we need to initialize a BeautifulSoup object. So soup equals bs.beautifulSoup, and then what are we passing to it? The HTML, and then we have to define a parser, and we're going to use the LXML parser here. You can use a variety of parsers that BeautifulSoup provides as well. So what we want to say is soup.find, and there's a million methods to find elements in BeautifulSoup, so, but we're going to use this. So soup.find, we want to say div, and let's just say the ID equals, and in quotes, quote summary. Awesome. So table equals that. We're going to set it to a variable, and then we're going to say print table.text, and that means, I'll show you why we did that, why we put .text at the end. So we have all this stuff here, our previous close, open, days range, and that looks like what we have right here. So we extracted the table correctly. However, this isn't really in the format that we wanted in. We're going to need to get it in a little better of a format. By the way, if you didn't put .text here, this is what's going to be returned. You're going to get HTML in there, and you don't want that for the most part. So what we want to do is we need to go into a loop now. We want to get the elements one by one, and we want to put them in a table, because typically we're going to want to be looking at this in a structured format, and even modifying some of the values depending on if you get numerical values back. You may have to do some integer conversions or float conversions as well. But what we're going to say right here is rows equals table.find underscore all, and then what do we want? TR. Why TR? Because the way this table is structured, we have our table, right, and then we have, okay, here's a table row, here's a table row, here's a table row. The way tables are structured, it's rows and then basically columns. So, but think of it almost as mini columns within the rows, where we have TD tags, and that's table data tags. That's what's housing our data. We also are going to want to loop through that. So let's real quick write a little loop. So for row in rows, what do we want to say? So first off, we want to separate this by label and number, right? So what we want to say is, number one, let's say data, or let's say label equals row dot find underscore all TD, and data equals, well, actually let's just print the label for now, and this is going to be in our 0th column, because the way it works is this is going to be the 0th column in the table, and this is going to be the first. So let's print the label and see what happens. Okay, so as we can see, it didn't print what we wanted because we didn't say .text. Okay, these are all our labels now. So as you can see, we extracted everything out of the first, or 0th in this case, column. Now what we want to say is data, and we can just copy this down actually. And we can say data equals that, and then we're going to put it to the first row. And then let's print data now. And let's see what happens. Awesome. So we have all the data end of it. So what we want to do now, we have our data and we've extracted it. What we want to do is present it in a format. There's a lot of ways to do this, but what I typically do, if I'm doing this for multiple stocks, which we're going to do in this tutorial, depending on the amount of time we have left, what we're going to do next is create a loop for a certain amount of tickers, and we're going to output it in a certain format. So this is going to be done in order to, maybe if you wanted to create a folder full of, let's say, the S&P 500, which we're going to do in later tutorials as well, getting all sorts of pricing data and fundamental data for them. The real value in this, though, is when you use it for 3,000 plus companies, maybe the Russell 3000, or even for entire exchanges. You can do it for that as well. But that's where the value really comes in if you get historical data and you're running this thing every day. But we're not there yet. We're still going over the basics, but this is just basic parsing in BeautifulSoup. So all we're doing here is looking at, okay, we have the table, and we found it by what? The ID in the tag name div. And now we're going into the table rows, and we can go from there and find table data. So that's the basic way we're parsing it. I think that's going to be all for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, we're just going to present this in a little better of a format so we can work for later videos, and we're going to do it with multiple tickers as well. So I think that just about wraps up this tutorial for BeautifulSoup. So rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you later.